Okay, so you go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of our AdSense Hangouts in Air session. Today, we're going to focus on how to combine AMP and PWAs. My name is Michael. I'm a strategic partner manager here in Dublin. Hi, Andre.
And my name's Andre. I'm also a strategic partner manager working out of Zurich, focusing on all of EMEA. Hello, AdSense, and welcome to the show. Hopefully you'll get some really good value out of the next half hour, 45 minutes. We're really looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, let's try to make it interactive. We have a couple of examples for you as well. So yeah, let's just hit it off. One thing we need to mention though, you all registered in the past for this Hangouts in Air. And on the first link, you can go ahead and register for more Hangouts in Air. There's plenty coming up. I think it's every third Wednesday, yeah, right, of the month. So go ahead and register. There's plenty of stuff coming up. And if you want to ask questions during this Hangouts in Air, you can follow the second link and ask questions during the Hangout. Also, we're going to have the link almost on every page, so you won't forget.
And also, if you go to the website AdSense on Air, that's where you can also watch all the previous installments of this, right? Yeah. So like, share with all your colleagues.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the next thing before we start, the last thing actually, that after this live stream, we will send you a feedback survey, which we ask you kindly to fill out, so we know what we can do best or better, what we can continue doing, and so on. And then afterwards, the presentation of today will be sent to you. Yeah.
Be kind.
Yeah. We try our best. Yeah. All right. So let's hit it off. This is our agenda for today. So we first are going to talk about some breaking news that happened in the last couple of weeks. Some of you might have heard about the AMP conference.
Some of you might have watched the last month's installment of this series, which was focusing on AMP.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple of new things, very exciting things coming up. That Andre is going to, mostly going to talk about what actually PWAs are. And then actually we're going to talk about how to choose or how to combine AMP and PWA. That's going to be an interesting topic. And in the end, we're going to talk about the WordPress plugin.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, we'll cover this in detail when we get to it. And obviously, the most important part for us is the Q&A at the end. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we'll leave plenty of time for all of your questions. So keep them coming.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get going. Some breaking news.
I mean, the AMP conference was just last week in Amsterdam. It was the second AMP conference ever. The previous one was in New York last year. Mm-hmm. And it was really exciting to see it come to Europe this year. Yeah. Plenty of European companies there. Everybody was really excited to be there. And it's not because it's organized by Google that I'm saying this. Really one of the best conferences that I attended. If next year you get a chance to go again or to go for the first time, absolutely go for it. It's well worth the experience. Yeah. A couple of really big announcements came out this time.
Yeah, we picked two. There were a lot, but we picked two.
One of them is AMP Stories, and that's really exciting. Mm-hmm. You can basically now... So where this started from is solving the problem of having long read format stories on mobile, which sometimes don't get the kind of interaction that you want from your users. So you are now able to offer them a much more visual, much more interactive experience using a combination of multimedia and a very smooth transition experience between the different parts of the story. Really, by all means, Google it, check it out, check out the videos of the presentation covering this. You have the links in the slides afterwards. It's absolutely exciting. It's really a new format, something really interesting to look forward to how it goes this year.
Yeah.
On top of this, there wasn't all. The other one that blew me away completely, for sure, and as one of the presenters said, it's the biggest thing in email since email. I mean, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
It's bringing the web functionality full front and center into your inbox. Yeah. You're basically now able, not all of you, not yet, it's still in beta, we're testing this, but it should roll out more widely this year. You're able to send AMP pages in your emails that you send out either as follow-ups or as newsletters or whatever it is that you're doing, which are dynamic and interactive. and people can interact with an email as if that was a web page. It's amazing.
And the use cases are really interesting. I mean, I know for one, myself, I sometimes get frustrated when I get a newsletter or something, and I want to unsubscribe, and then I click on the unsubscribe button, and then it leads me to a web page where I again need to log in, and I forgot my login details. So it's really cumbersome. It's not a very good user experience, and that particular publisher might lose me as a customer or as a follower or whatever. But having AMP for email, I can do all of that. If I wanted to unsubscribe, if I wanted to maybe change my subscribe settings, I can do all of that inside my email. So maybe, I don't even...
Maybe if you want to receive more emails.
Maybe more emails. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's just one example of what's possible with that. And it's amazing, really. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So those were the two big announcements. Yeah. A lot more focus was made this year, and this is just an example of what it could look like. Just imagine this page, for example, with the temperature and the readings, all of it updating in real time. Yeah. Another thing that got a lot of focus and a lot of attention, a lot of love during the conference was the fact that AMP is really grown up now. It's not just for news publishers. It hasn't been for news publishers for a while now, but now we're really seeing, first of all, a lot of traffic to AMP pages that are not necessarily just news focused. So it could be any type of content on the web out there. And we're really excited to see all the new possibilities come to people who are creating and using AMP pages. But now let's proceed to the next part. So what's a PWA? Now, first of all, maybe not all of you know what the abbreviation stands for, and we'll keep using it today a little bit. But what I'd say is you can kind of remember the abbreviation, but then also a little bit forget about it. It means progressive web apps. What hides behind this is any website that meets the new bar for user experience that our customers, your visitors have grown to expect from the web these days. It means that your web presence, your web experience is reliable, and we'll cover some of this in a little bit more detail. Fast, engaging, and also integrated. We won't talk so much about the integrated part of it. I'll just mention here very quickly that what this implies is that your web presence is able to fully capitalize on the abilities of the device through which the user is interacting with you, right? So a phone is not just a smaller screen. A phone is also a camera, it's the compass, it's a lot of other things that you could be thinking about. But let's talk about the first three in a bit more detail. So first one is reliability. And I don't know about you, Michael, but when I'm traveling, when I'm on the plane or on the train, there are lots of situations where I am not in a position to connect to the net, or my connection is either slow or intermittent. It comes and goes. So this doesn't just apply to people in less developed countries or countries with poor connections. This applies across the world. So what you want to make sure is that your website provides a reliable experience regardless of where your user is and what their connection is like. So that's the first point. Second point is speed. Obviously, those of you who watch closely this series or in general follow what's happening with AMP, that's one of Google's biggest bets on making the web faster. But you want to think about the fact that, and we'll talk about this in more detail when we go to the AMP PWA strategies, that it's not just the first interaction with your website that needs to be fast, it's also the entire experience from first introduction to the final conversion that needs to remain fast. And that's what a progressive web should be. It should be fast. And we'll explain in a bit more detail how do you achieve that.
Just maybe one insight here. Well, we talked about it in the last live stream as well, but the break-off point really is about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So if your website is not loading or is not loaded within those 3 seconds, like nearly, I think it was like 53% of users just disappear, which is insane.
And the key thing to remember about this is that people normally think about this as in terms of the experience with the landing page. But check it out. Every next page that takes longer to load keeps shrinking that funnel for you. So if you're not trying to speed up the entire experience, really, why not? All right, you should be thinking about this. And the final bit is engaging, right? So how do we keep our users engaged? How do we keep our users coming back who love the experience or the content that you provide and that we provide? How do we make sure that they keep consuming it? Well, so this is what you should be doing with your website as well. You can send notifications. So when something interesting happens that you would like your readers or your customers to come back and interact with, you can tell them, right, from your website. If you would like your users to have the ability to be really connected to your experience and come back to it straight from the screen of the device, it doesn't have to be just a mobile phone, it can be the desktop as well. You can do that now, right? You can leave a clearly visible, controlled by you icon button on their home screen, which allows them to come right back. And then the experience that they get once they open that up, you also control that. You control if it's full screen or if it's inside a browser window, what it looks like during loading, and so on and so forth. So you're really creating something there that, I think we have a question about this, and we'll definitely come back to it, but people keep asking this. What's the difference between PWAs and regular apps? Generally speaking, there isn't one. Native apps, people keep thinking about native apps as this perfect, engaged, and available experience that you're only able to provide using apps coded for the Play Store. It doesn't have to be. You can do that. You can achieve that with your website completely. Now, how do you get that done? Right? In few, I'm not going to get too complicated, but in few simple terms, what do you need to make that happen? There's two parts to it. First part of it is you need to use a technology that is called service workers. It's just a JavaScript file. It can be as simple as a couple of lines. It can get a little bit more complicated if you wanted to. What it does, it controls all this fancy functionality that allows you to achieve the three things that we talked about before. It controls the push notifications that you send. It enables you to save resources from your website on the client's device, so let's say on their phone, for example. And then depending on the network conditions, it makes the decision with you and for you whether to use the resources that have been cached or to go to your website to fetch some new stuff. And that enables you to remain fast, right? So that's the thing. Think about this. Somebody touches your website for the first time, you go, great, awesome, have our service worker now. And before the next interaction happens, the service worker already enables and kind of preheats everything else that can happen on your website, right? They land on your, right? They land on your, I don't know, a list of articles. You pre-warm every next article. So your next click will be immediate. So that's how that works. And that's what the service worker does. And the other bit that goes into this, and this is the most amount of code you will see during the entire presentation, we promise, this is just to say, this is the extent of the manifest file. So the manifest file is just these lines of code that tell the device what to do with this thing, right? It has a name, it has an icon, it has a couple of icon sizes that you might want to use, and how does it behave? For example, here you see display standalone. That just means that when a user opens it up, it opens up full screen, for example, right? And not as an in-browser experience. It's really easy to write. You see it here. There's plenty of resources that help you along, including the one that you see on in the slide as well, the link in the bottom right, to explain you how to build one. It's really easy to build that. Once you have a working service worker, right, a valid service worker, and a valid manifest file, that enables browsers to offer the app install banner that you now also see on the slide. It basically prompts the user, hey, you seem to like this website, you seem to interact with it. Wouldn't you want to do that all the time? Add it to your home screen. So that's it, really. That's it in a nutshell. And the last thing is just to tell you, once you've done all of that, a great tool, and we'll show you a couple of things about that as well, and so there's some links on the slides towards the end. A great tool to test your implementation is Lighthouse. Right? Lighthouse is a separate Chrome extension. It's a command line tool. It also lives directly in Chrome Developer Tools, so there's many different ways to access it. But the main point of it is just it's a tool that allows you, it enables you to see how well your implementation is working, right? Yeah,
and what things you might have missed, what things you might want to implement as well in your PWA. One thing I wanted to mention as well, because we talked about engagement and re-engagement, specifically about push notifications. I just heard a really interesting example because people always ask, like, when should I actually send out push notifications? And when they do, they sometimes think, oh, that doesn't really help. Actually, I heard an interesting example because, like, if you think about it, if for example, we both met for the first time, you wouldn't ask me, or I wouldn't ask you right away, hey, do you want to help me move? Right. So because we just met, we don't know each other really. We might want to get to know each other a little bit more because before I actually, ask you something or ask for your help. Right. So then if you think about that, it kind of like helped me understand what push notifications actually do. So if you have a new user, you might not want to, send them push or ask them, hey, do you want to receive push notifications right away? Maybe wait a little bit until the user gets to know your page, gets to know your content, maybe starts liking it. And then at some point when, you have a functioning relationship, ask them, hey, by the way, you seem to like our content. How about we send you push notifications whenever something new comes up or whatever, right? So totally. I like this example, and I just wanted to share with you because it helped me understand how to approach this issue, or not issue, but matter.
Cool point. Yeah. Cool point. All right, moving on.
Right. So now some of you might think, okay, so we listened to the live stream a month ago, which was about AMP. Now we're talking about another acronym, which is PWA. Now I'm confused. What shall I do? Should I use the first or the latter? Can I combine maybe both of them? So, and actually, yes, you can. And this is one of the main takeaways really of this live stream today. So yeah, this is amazing. Some magic on the screen. So yeah, so AMP and PWA are not exclusive or mutually exclusive elements. You can combine both. But the important thing is, yeah, first of all, if you combine both of them, actually you do achieve more engagement on your site. So users do spend more time on your site compared to the standard HTML.
What's this number, the 39%? Is that from a real partner? Is that from a study?
I think it's from a study. Yeah, it's from a study. Yeah.
So we've seen this approach has been implemented not once and not twice, quite a few times.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing to mention here is there's no correct path here, really. So you know your business best. So if you probably know better after we talk about these things today, how to implement these features, because again, you know your business best, and we can only tell you what some best practices are and what other businesses have done in the past. So with that in mind, basically what we talk about when we talk about combining AMP and PWA is AMP is a very good entry points to your site, whether it's an article, whether it's a product page, some profile, some listing page. Whenever people go to your page through search, through social, through sharing, right? Advertising, yeah, landing page, exactly. They should land on an AMP page because that's very fast. It's very simple, very lightweight, and it's a very good entry point. But everything that comes after that might potentially be a PWA, right? I think that's a good way to summarize it, right? So in detail, what we talk about when we mention these two is there's three ways of actually combining those two frameworks. First is AMP as a progressive web app. Then the second is AMP to a progressive web app. And the third one is AMP in a progressive web app. That's kind of like the basic narrative here. And we're going to talk about each of them in a bit more detail now. So the first one is AMP as a progressive web app. So basically what we mean by that is if you actually now can use AMP as your go-to framework for your entire mobile page. So everything you have can be done with the AMP framework, right? So it's not only as it used to be at the very beginning, only for like very static news sites, for example, or article pages. You can actually build your entire mobile web experience in AMP.
I definitely encourage everybody here to go and check out the videos from the AMP conference, even if you just want to skim through them. There's tons more functionality. And especially if you watch one thing, definitely watch the part of the conference that deals with what's coming up this year. You'll be blown away by all the things that will become possible.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely go have a look. So again, so if you one of those people who think, hey, I just want to use this AMP framework to the fullest, and I want to build my entire mobile web experience in AMP, yeah, you can go ahead and do that, and then have all of the progressive web app functionalities that we talked about at the beginning, also have that included as well. Yeah.
So these are examples.
Yeah, those are just examples of what you could potentially do.
It's an actual, the thing is the AMP by example website itself, where you can read up about all the AMP components and what they do. It is a PWA. It's entirely built on AMP. It has no other version, and it is also a PWA. That was built by Googlers, but we're not the only ones doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So one example we wanted to share with you is MyNet, which is a Turkish publisher. And what they have done is exactly what I've just said. They built their entire mobile web experience with AMP. And included PWA functionality, as you can see here as well. So they have a menu, they have some interactive elements in it, but every page, everything you see is actually AMP, right? So that's the most important thing to remember for you. So this is one possibility of combining these two. And one thing that we wanted to share as well here is that by doing so, you can see like all the relevant KPIs went up or down, respectively, but they saw a 25% increase in revenue per article page, right? the page load speed was increased by 4 times, really. On average, people spend nearly half much time more on their site. And also the page views increased and the bounce rate decreased. So
if I were to guess, I'd say a lot of this is down to the speed of interaction of the pages that you create. But also I'd say that for example, the increased page views per session might also be coming from the fact that people just love this experience more and keep coming back to it because this is the way they would love to consume content.
Absolutely. And also I think you all have a limited amount of time or attention span. So if everything loads faster, you can actually see more pages in the same amount of time, right? So this is a very good example of how you can combine AMP and PWA.
It's not the only one.
It's not the only one for sure. Yeah. We're going to have more examples in the next ones. So AMP to PWA, it's very similar, really. But there's one major difference is that, as we said, you start fast by entering through a AMP page. And again, this could be a search site, it could be social, it could be an ad, whatever it is that you use. But then you also stay fast by then going forward to a PWA page.
In some ways, I'd say, I don't know if you agree, Michael, that here, this is probably potentially the strategy that you might want to at least start with.
Yeah, right? I agree. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You keep your existing web experience. You bump it up with the PWA capabilities, and you build an AMP entry point on top of that.
Yeah. So this could have been the first example, really, because this is probably what some or most publishers would start with. Yeah. Because you don't have to, let's say, change your entire mobile web experience and change it to AMP, but you keep your existing one, but then you make it into a PWA, really. So we talked about it. You actually talked about it at the beginning. So what it does is really, the user discovers the content through whatever channel you use. Once the user clicks on that link, which leads to an AMP page, the service work is actually being installed in the background, right? So it warms up the subsequent PWA, right? And then when the user actually then clicks again on a link on the first page or on the menu, whatever, they get instantly upgraded to the PWA, which is then your standard web experience, right? So a couple of examples here. So some of you might know Crossing or Xing, which is kind of the LinkedIn counterpart in Europe. This is one example of what they've done here. So as you can see in the first step, the user discovers, for example, a job offering in search. They click on it, which is an AMP page, and you can see it because it has this lightning bolt next to it. So they click on that link and they get redirected to an AMP page. And in the background, the service worker, is being installed, which obviously the user doesn't really notice. And then when they say, "Oh, actually, I'd like one of those job listings," and they click again, they get redirected to the PWA web experience.
If I didn't cover this in detail during my part, maybe we can add this here. So what does the service worker do here specifically? You see the Xing logo on the third slide, or on the third image, right? You see the Xing logo, you see some of the other assets like buttons and all this kind of stuff. You don't need to wait for the page to be opened before you start sending this information to the client's device. While the user is on the second page, or rather the first landing page of your website, or the second image in the screen, you can already start preloading all that stuff. So by the time they actually want to make the transition to read more about this job offering, all of those assets are already on their phone. So it all opens up immediately. So that's the point.
And you can actually see the difference between the second and the third one. On top of the second one, you have this typical AMP, let's say, header, right? And then on the third one, you can see this is the actual Xing web experience.
I want to make sure that people understand that you can also have your header in your AMP experience if you choose to do so. What is interesting about the third one is, if you pay close attention, you don't see a browser anywhere, right? So it's a full page experience, and you control that. Although you're still in the browser.
It looks like a native app, but it isn't. Another example we wanted to mention is Rakuten, which is a Japanese site. In this case, it's a recipe site. And the use case is really similar as well. So you look in Google, you search for a recipe for something, you discover the content, you click on the AMP page, you land on this particular recipe on the AMP framework, And then you might think, oh, I like maybe another recipe that's below that, or maybe I want to check out some more. And then you click again. The service worker has done its work in the past, in the background, and you land on the PWA experience.
It looks like actually in this example, a user is going back to the homepage because they want to explore more about what you're actually doing, and that's ideal, because this is when your engagement starts. This is where your initial offering has invoked the interest, and now they're yours, right? And you can do all sorts of interesting stuff with them. Yeah,
and if it happens really fast, then then you see that the KPIs go up because the user actually stays on the page and maybe engages even more, right? Yeah, and a couple of KPIs here that we see. So yeah, as we said, right, the users spend more time on the page, actually 50% more time. The CTR on the AMP pages increased by 3.6 times, which is really, really good. And then as we mentioned as well, you have those PWA functionalities, namely push notifications and add to home screen. So push notifications increase the weekly sessions, right, per use, obviously, if you do it right, if you do it correctly. And after the second week, it was 4.2 times, and at 4.3 after a month, right? So this really helped this particular publisher to re-engage with their user base, and as well the bounce rate decreased. And then about the add to home screen functionality, they saw an increase in unique users, or in visits per unique user, and an increase in page views.
One way to think about this, for example, is if whichever way you get traffic acquisition, through paid search, organic search, or whatever it is, social networks, you pay to get eyeballs on your page.
Yeah.
This, in a sense, these guys are free because you paid for them already, and they just keep coming back to you. And this is what you would normally try to get by building a native app and having people install that and then come back to that experience. You can do that just with your website, and that's the magic of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, as we said, this is maybe the first use case for most publishers. But yeah, have a look. So it might sound like the perfect solution, but there's a couple of caveats here. Actually, when you combine AMP and PWA, what happens is that in the background you have an AMP HTML background solution, right? And you also have the typically the JSON background for the PWA experience, right? So this is not really ideal. And that's actually where AMP in PWAs comes in. So when we talk about AMP, we don't mean, well, obviously they're web pages, but they're more than that. They're actually ultra portable, embeddable content units.
Michael, did you know that the original name that the team came up with when they were coming up with the concept of AMP was actually PCU? Okay. And then they gave up on it because it just doesn't sound well. But PCU stood for portable content units.
Right.
So that's that's the initial concept of it all. You can see that coming back to life with the whole thing that we just talked about, AMP and email, where this concept is really now coming into its own, where AMP is just a thing that you can put anywhere. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. So again, so if you have these two, or rather than instead of having these two data formats and different experiences, AMP for what you can do here. I don't want to go into too much detail, to be honest, because you can read up on it as well on the respective web pages. But what's possible with AMP is you can actually use only the one format for both your AMP experience and your PWA experience. One way of doing it might be an iframe, but actually iframes are a bit too slow, right? That's right, yeah. Why are they slow, right? Yeah. So the reason here is that if you imagine your web page, for example, let's think of you have a list of articles, right? So you have individual articles, and maybe you have the short paragraphs of each article on the page that is a category of articles, let's say. And every single article there is an AMP piece of content. You would have to load every one of them in its own iframe, and every time you load it, it would have to load the entire AMP library with it, to be able to display properly. And that's what slows the whole thing down. Exactly. So this is basically, we talk about Shadow DOM without and with Shadow DOM, really. Yeah.
So in this case, it comes to the rescue because what it does is really that you load the AMP library just once, and that makes everything faster and makes everything smoother. Really, the details of which we're not going to go into here, because in practice, or you can actually check it out on the link that is displayed here. But what happens is really that the PWA hijacks the navigation clicks and fetches the AMP page. Yeah.
Right. So you can think about this. The simplest way I think to describe this is that your website or your web app, right? Your web app has a shell, which is, I don't know, it's header, its menu, everything around it, the structure of it. Yeah. And then within that structure, you have nests into which you bring in the AMP content. And the ideal way to bring it is by using the technique called the shadow DOM, so as that you don't have to bring in all of the AMP supporting infrastructure, just the AMP content, which is lightning fast. Yeah. Right. And so read up on that. It's a bit more of an advanced technique, I would say, but definitely worth exploring if you're really committing to this and investing in this.
I think if I had to give a suggestion, I would probably say maybe even start with a second case here, AMP2 progressive web apps. See how it goes for you. If you want to change your whole mobile web experience to AMP, you can do that as well. And if you want to be advanced, check out the last AMP in progressive web app experience.
So hopefully that covered that and actually answered more questions that it created. Hopefully. But if you have questions, don't forget, you have the link at the bottom. Keep asking those questions. Keep them coming. We'll love to answer them. Yeah. When we're at nearly the last part of the video, so one more. So nearly there. We wanted to focus on WordPress, not because there's a particular relationship with WordPress or anything. And in fact, any framework that you use is perfectly fine and can work at both as AMP and can have the PWA functionality. We just managed to notice that quite a few websites out there are built using WordPress. Numbers are silly. And quite a few of you, actually, as we've noticed, quite a few of the people watching us also seem to use WordPress as your underlying structure. And very often we get questions. So if I'm using a CMS, like, am I stuck? And we would like to showcase WordPress as just an example. And other CMSs actually are also working on integrating both the AMP framework and the PWA experience into their offering. WordPress specifically. You don't have to do this now, but definitely do this once we've finished talking to each other. Run an experiment on your actual website right now. Disable cache, throttle down the network using Chrome developer tools, and see how fast your website loads. And in particular, if you have a WordPress website, do that as well. And then see the difference that you're going to achieve, because then what will happen is you'll start to understand a bit better the link between the technical jargon and the DOM content loaded and the loading time and the actual experience that you see as a developer or as a website owner. And these are the results that you can get using the Jetpack plugin for WordPress in terms of speeding things up. I think the numbers speak for themselves. It's clear that just by downloading and using one simple plugin, you can boost your website not twice, not 3 times. It's a 10x improvement in loading times with everything that comes with it. If you'd like to download the WordPress Jetpack plugin, you have the link right there. But I'd also encourage you, if you're not using WordPress, to explore what solutions exist both for AMP and PWA in your CMS of choice. A lot of them, we're really engaged with a lot of them, and a lot of them are working on making integration as simple as possible for their clients. Yeah. And also, let us know let us know in the questions, and you have the link there. If there are particular CMSs that you're really interested in, and that you would really love to be able to use the functionality with, let us know. We'd love to get that sort of feedback to figure out how we can best help you get this awesomeness into your web experience. All
right, almost done.
Nearly done. Couple of things to wrap up. Well, first of all, let's recap.
Well, first of all, basically, we said it also in the last live stream. Users nowadays, especially on mobile, because mobile is everywhere now and has surpassed desktop almost, they do expect more. And by more, we mean the web experience should be reliable, should be fast, it should be smooth, right? It should be just pretty as well, right? And AMP and PWA really helps you achieve exactly that. And it's, as we said, hopefully it came across, it's not really about AMP or PWA. It's actually both. And there's interesting ways, interesting use cases, how you can actually combine these two frameworks.
Right.
Yeah.
And in many cases, you don't have to do it from scratch. We talked about AMP PWA. You can start by dipping your toes in the water with building an AMP landing page and having a very simple service worker to see how those two technologies can work for you. You can see what solutions are available from your CMS provider if you're using a CMS, right? And it might be as easy as downloading a plugin and seeing how that plays with your website. So don't be afraid to give it a try, and keep, and if you get stuck, keep coming back to our communities, keep asking us questions, and we'll try to do our best to help you out with resources and documentation. We have a special offer for you.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting, because we hope that you don't just listen to us, but you also think, oh, that's a good idea. Let me try that out. So if you actually plan to develop an AMP PWA experience after this live stream, which we hope you do, you can actually do that and sign up by using that link to kind of submit what you have coded. And receive the chance of developing best practices and working together with a Google expert to give you tips and tricks, really.
So you're not seeing a link here right now on the slide, so you actually have to do the things that you have to do at the end of the presentation to get the slides to be able to access this link. That's number one. That's your first action item. And the second action item, it will make no sense for you to sign up if you haven't implemented anything. So make sure you do at least something, that you try something, you send it to us, and then we'll see that it looks, that it looks promising, that you seem to kind of want to do this, and we'll do our best to help you.
And again, just sorry, before we go to the next one, it might be overwhelming. It might be something new to you. Don't be overwhelmed. Just start slowly. Start with baby steps, really. Maybe pick, I don't know, if you, for example, think about AMP to PWA, pick a couple of, some of your the landing pages with the most traffic, for example, right? Just pick maybe 10 of them and just convert them into AMP and just see how it goes, right? Don't be overwhelmed by the fact that it might be that you might need to change everything in your system. Just start slow, start testing, and just move forward with baby steps.
Right. Nearly done now, promise. Almost at your questions. But couldn't walk away from you without telling you about this thing that is just coming up. Now, if you got interested in this and you would love to learn more, and you would like actually to get your hands on some code labs and coding in the presence and with the support of experts from Google, PWA roadshows are coming to a city near you.
So we have 3 of them actually, all coming up in March. We have one in London on the 1st, one in Munich on the 8th, and one in Paris on the 13th of March. And again, I think this is a unique opportunity because this is a really hands-on hackathon, I want to say, where you are encouraged really, and you should bring, if you get the chance to go, to bring your laptop, send your developers, go yourself if you are a developer, and just be around the same-minded people, talk to Google experts,
talk to each other.
Talk to each other. Yeah, it's a really nice way to engage and network, find some best practices of other publishers. So yeah, it's a really a good chance.
Right. I'm not going to talk about this slide. You're going to get it. These are all the resources that we mentioned today and more, including the couple of YouTube channels, the AMP channel and the Google Developers channel, which I definitely encourage you to check out. Plus some tools. Don't miss the next one.
Last thing we want to say here, really. So as we said, every 3rd Wednesday, there's a new live stream coming up. And the next one is going to be on the new things that come to AdSense in 2018. So you might be interested in that. And I hope you are.
Ways to make more money?
More ways to make more money, finance your content.
Awesome.
So yeah, go ahead and register on this link. And then, it's not going to be us, though. But
well, you're going to see some of our colleagues back in March. That's it. That's us. We're going to your questions now. Keep them coming. Hope you like this.
All right.
Wow, we have a lot of questions. That is awesome. That's great.
Pretty cool.
Okay, so let me ask you.
Sure.
James is asking, how do progressive web apps differ from regular apps?
Well, not by much, to be honest. I think the only thing really is that you don't download them in the Play Store. Or those are really your regular web experience with app functionality. And the word like the word app in progressive web apps is a bit misleading, you know, because it's not really an app.
Well, or maybe encouraging, right? To start thinking about your web experience.
Yeah.
As I think people associate with an application, all the things that we mentioned, reliability, stability, speed, they associate that with an application, and they've stopped associating it with a website, because websites are kind of old school and slow. Well, they're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So not much of a difference, but you know, the future of mobile web, really.
Yep. And the future is now.
Okay, so maybe the next one I can ask you then. So Stella is asking, how will PWA and AMP increase traffic to my blog? And what are the modalities involved in the application?
So, great question, Stella. Thank you very much for that one. I'll start by answering the second part of it.
Yeah.
The modalities, I'd say, we covered, and Michael covered them in quite some detail. The approaches you can take to it, mind you, AMP PWA, AMP PWA, and AMP in PWA. So that's the 3 ways you can think about this. And in terms of traffic, you've seen examples. One thing that immediately comes to mind is that re-engagement through push notifications and installs of your website on users' devices. They drive real traffic, and you saw the numbers. It's 3 times that, 5 times something this. It's obvious. When people love your content, they want to have more ways to interact with it. And PWA plus AMP gives you exactly that possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right.
Hamza is asking, hi Hamza, is from Morocco. Hello, Morocco. Awesome that somebody in Morocco is watching us. And my country's CPM is too low. My question is, how can I plus the earnings quickly?
All right. Make more money. Yeah, we all want to make more money. And you know, that obviously helps you to finance your content. Well, I hope as you saw in the deck and with the case studies that we showed, if you follow the steps and if you use, let's say, AMP and PWA, you get a chance to, you know, re-engage more users, to have them spend more time on your page, and all of those things that we talked about really help you to, you know, increase the monetization, really. I
mean, you put, at the end of the day, your CPMs are low, but if you're putting more pages in front of your users,
that's the thing.
Right, they will see more ads.
Yeah, exactly. So as these 2 technologies help you to, you know, have more users on your pages, engage with them, make your content more popular, really, and bring it to more users. It won't increase the CPCs or anything like that directly, obviously, but you know, more users mean more traffic, mean more revenue for you, ultimately.
Cool.
Yeah.
And next,
let's see what because we probably won't get to all of the questions. Let me see what we have here. There's one about WordPress by Ali.
Oh, let's try that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ali's asking, AMP is fast. We also tested PWA. It looks great. Good. Question, and also our need is using AMP plus PWA for desktop experience as well as mobile. We use WordPress and Zenforo. We would love to see PWA for Zenforo as well. Do you have any idea what we can expect? Have you heard about that? Or?
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with Zenforo, but I think what I'm getting from the question as well is that then your need, Ali, is to have an AMP plus PWA desktop experience. You have that right now, right? You don't need to... If you, one of the options that you have is having AMP as your only website, and I think you know, the ampproject.org is a great example of that. AliExpress have created an experience which is just AMP. You can have just one website built using AMP, and and it totally works on desktop. And the PWA functionalities, some of them are already there, some of them are coming. Definitely the resource caching and speeding things up is already working for desktop, and much more is becoming available.
I think the question Mary asked is quite interesting as well.
All right, so Mary's asking regarding PWA, does the service worker install in the background right away at every first visit of the user, or does it require the user to enable it by accepting the terms? So there is no enablement.
No,
right?
It just happens in the background.
Yeah. And first visit, it's a very good point, right? So your returning users don't need to get the service worker again unless you've updated something, right? And it checks itself. It checks every time the user opens up your website, the service worker asks your server, is there new stuff? Do I need to get updated? If there is, it gets updated. If there isn't, it just keeps working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's there.
Great. So Mohammed is asking, is AMP compatible with Facebook Instant Articles?
Not exactly sure what Mohammed means by compatibility. I've heard, and again, don't take my words at face value, Google it, or use your search engine of choice. I believe Facebook is starting to offer a converter that allows you to create AMP pages out of instant articles, right?
Yeah, and I think what you can do is you can actually post AMP pages within Facebook.
Well, that is obviously because AMP pages are just web pages. So right. So if you will lose some of the advantages that we haven't covered and probably were covered in the previous session, but the fastness, the speed will always be there for your users, right?
Yeah.
So you can totally do that. Okay, Alan asks here, hi Alan, I have a responsive website. Only articles are available as AMPs. I understand that thanks to your presentation that I can create a transition to PWA pages, but not sure to understand what I have to do to create these new PWA pages. You don't need to create new PWA pages, Alan. That's the beauty of it, right? Your existing pages are your PWA pages. All you need to do is you put a service worker on your website and tell it what to do, right? Which resources to cache, which push notifications to send, and in the manifest file you tell the client's device what your website should look like when a user starts interacting with it. Yeah. And you keep your pages exactly as they are.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't go into too much detail when it comes to like the actual technical implementation, but you can see in the links that you will get at the end of the presentation, how easy it really is. Yeah.
Oh, the one from Goran on design. Design of AMP pages are mostly with white background and dark text. How does it go with dark background and light text? Are there any issues? I don't see a lot of those examples online. Oh, I
wouldn't know why it shouldn't work. I mean,
and I wouldn't even say, I wouldn't necessarily agree that that's the case, right?
Yeah,
We've seen all sorts of different examples. So one thing AMP definitely doesn't do, it doesn't limit your design options.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, again, I think 2 years ago, roughly when it started, probably we introduced it to mostly article pages. But nowadays, if you have an e-commerce site, you can use AMP. If you have super interactive content, you can use AMP. So there's actually not much of a limitation anymore. So I don't think that dark texts should be should not work.
So we're nearly out of time. We have a couple of very quick questions, I think here. One more from Marie, and I would like to answer the one from David. So David is asking about a better service to update an AMP cache URL. There is no service that you could use through Search Console, but definitely check out the AMP cache ping. So you can automate that. You can use that API in a very automated way. You can read, and also make sure you check out AMP bind as a component if you have dynamically updating content on your pages. So that's all I have to say on that. Google that stuff. And then Marie is asking, according to our experience, what's the average time investment in becoming AMP and PWA ready?
To be honest, I know some colleagues who are not developers, and they did it in a day. So I think if you have some coding skills and you are a developer, it should be really easy for you, to be honest, because you use a library, right? You use an existing library, and you kind of like adapt it to your needs. But it's coding wise, I think it's pretty simple.
I would agree with that. I think it's in particular that one of the key advantages of AMP is that it creates a really easy framework for you to get started to work with. And PWA, one of the parts of the acronym PWA is progressive. What that means is that you can start with baby steps anywhere you like. You can start by sending push notifications or maybe caching some content, and then you progressively add more functionality to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I think we're out of time. Well, thank you for the questions, for sure. Happy to clarify things, and thanks for the engagement.
Don't forget to sign up for a chance to have a consultation with a Google expert on AMP and PWA. Don't forget to come back next March for more of this. Sign up at the links that you saw before. And give us feedback after this live stream, and then you will get the presentation with all the links and everything. And I would just encourage everybody to just go ahead and try it. I think you won't be able to go away from this, right? This is going to be the standard. If it isn't already. Go ahead and try it. Don't be afraid, and see the results for yourself. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
You've been Michael and Andre, and see you in March.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.